I will never forget the first time I saw Bod. He wasn't just scared, he was broken. His body was stiff, his head hung low, and his eyes told a story of suffering no animal should ever endure. For 4 months, he had been tied to a wall, locked away in complete darkness. No sunlight, no fresh air, no kindness. Just the cold, damp walls of his prison. He barely had enough space to turn around. His legs trembled from weakness, his spirit already fading. And the worst part? He had no idea what was coming next. His owner had already made arrangements. Bod was going to be sold to the meat trade. I knew in that moment I had to act fast. Getting Bod out of that place was one of the hardest things I've ever done. He had never known freedom, never felt the touch of someone who cared. When I first tried to move him, he resisted, his body stiff with fear. He didn't understand that I was trying to save him. And then, the real challenge began, getting him into the trailer. He had lived his whole life in darkness, and now, he was being asked to step into another unfamiliar space. The light outside overwhelmed him, making him hesitant, uncertain. Every time I tried to coax him forward, he would freeze, his breathing shallow, his body refusing to move. I whispered to him, my voice soft, steady. I needed him to trust me. Inch by inch, step by step, he moved forward. His hooves clanked against the metal floor of the trailer. He hesitated, took one final breath, and walked inside. The door closed behind him. He was safe. For the first time in his life, he was going somewhere better. But what I didn't know then was that saving Bod was only the beginning of our journey. When we arrived at his new home, Bod didn't move. He stood frozen in his stall, staring at the unfamiliar surroundings. He didn't explore, didn't sniff, didn't react. It was as if he was waiting for something bad to happen. He had spent his entire life expecting pain. And now, even though he was safe, he still didn't believe it. The hardest part was his fear of hands. Every time I raised my hand, even gently, he would flinch, his whole body bracing for impact. It broke my heart. He had learned to associate hands with pain, not kindness. So I didn't force it. Instead, I just sat outside his stall. No pressure, no expectations, just presence. Days passed, and little by little, something changed. He started watching me, his ears flicking forward with curiosity. Then, one day, he took a step closer. It was small, almost unnoticeable, but to me, it was everything. And then, the real breakthrough happened. I reached out my hand, giving him the choice to move away. But he didn't. Instead, he leaned in. For the first time, he let me touch his face. At that moment, I knew he was beginning to trust. Once that trust was built, everything started to change. Bod began following me around the paddock. No hesitation, no fear. Every time I called his name, he would come running, his ears perked with curiosity. He would nuzzle against me, seeking affection instead of shying away from it. And then one day, I saw something I never thought I would. Bod played. The first time I saw him kick up his heels in excitement, my heart nearly burst. He ran, he bucked, he tossed his head with pure joy. He had discovered something he never knew existed, happiness. But it wasn't just me. He had found family. Bod met my other horses, and before long, he became part of the herd. He developed an unbreakable bond with them, running side by side, sharing food, nudging each other in play. He had finally found his place. Everything had transformed. The terrified, neglected foal who once stood frozen in fear was now a shining, glowing spirit. For 2 years, Bod thrived. He became strong, confident, full of life. But then, one winter, something changed. Bod started calling out. His voice was different, uncertain, almost pleading. I knew something was wrong. I called the vets immediately. We ran tests, tried treatments, exhausted every option. I refused to give up, but sometimes, even when you give everything, it's not enough. Bod passed away. The pain of losing him was unbearable. I had fought so hard to give him a new life, and it still wasn't long enough. But when I look back at Bod's journey, I don't see his suffering. I see his strength. I see a horse who went from knowing nothing but fear to experiencing the purest form of love. I see a soul that was given a second chance. And I see a life that, even though too short, mattered. Bod changed me. His resilience, his ability to trust again, his transformation. It's why I do what I do. And here's the truth. There are thousands of horses just like Bod. Horses who have been discarded, mistreated, and left to suffer. Horses waiting for someone to show them kindness. Maybe that someone is you. Not everyone can rescue a horse, but everyone can do something. You can support rescues. You can spread awareness. You can be a voice for the voiceless. Because sometimes, all it takes is one act of kindness to change a life forever. Bod's story didn't end in darkness. It ended in love. And maybe, just maybe, his story will inspire someone to save another. Because every life, no matter how broken, is worth saving.